Welcome to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, where world-changing spiritual entrepreneurs come to deeply awaken the power within to bring forth their greatest purpose, to create massive awakened impact for millions of souls around the planet, while enjoying being in tune with all life and real wealth in all aspects of their lives. I'm your host, Daniel John Hanneman. And hello again, everybody. Wow, I'm so grateful to be here. I'm here to talk to you about QuantumThink. I mean, we that's where we are. This is where we are. This is where things are. Do you know how to quantum think? If you even wonder for 1 second that you don't know if you know how to quantum think, then you probably don't have it very clear yet. So you need to learn how to quantum think. Okay, and I have the amazing Alan Collins here as our guest today to share about quantum thinking. So hello, Alan.
Hello, Dan. Nice to be here with you.
I mean, this is such an important topic. Everybody is like, we're going into the 5D. I talk about 5D and beyond as well. And we need to go into the quantum. We need to go into the quantum. Well, we need to study how to quantum think, right? So here we are.
It helps.
Right. Let's get an orientation here, right? So we're going to dive into it today. I want to tell you a little bit about Alan before we do that. And while I'm thinking of it, go ahead and smash that love the subscribe button. Go ahead and give it some love. Give us a like if you're on YouTube, or give us a nice review, or whatever, if you like us. So okay, 5 stars, right, Alan? 5 stars all the way, right? Okay,
5 stars.
Let's go ahead and talk about Alan. Alan Collins, Master QuantumThink Coach and Strategic QuantumThink Consultant, emanates his natural inclination to have people be successful in all areas of life. Yes. His exceptional talent and intuitive ability to zoom directly on what is most significant for people instantly connects them to their power to go forward in living their vision. Alan was born and schooled in London, England. When he was 25, Alan moved to the United States, where he became a highly successful small business owner of renowned beauty salons. Years later, after experiencing a transformational discovery in his own life, he focused his talents to human development as it relates to business and professional success. Many of Alan's clients, each one of them highly accomplished leaders, have been with him for more than 10 years. There's something to this, a testimony of ever-expanding value of his insight, his expansive thinking, and his laser coaching. His deep appreciation for the value of quantum think and his ability to convey it to people in ways that profoundly transform them forever make him a truly gifted master coach of quantum thinking. Alan has led group programs and coaching sessions with thousands of people of all ages and walks of life, and is known by his peers as a coach's coach. So again, so grateful to have you, Alan. These are transformational times, to say the least. We've got so much going on, and we both were on a spiritual summit, worldwide spiritual summit together. Is how we got to know each other. And you were talking about this subject, quantum thinking. I was just like, that totally resonates for me. That's what I'm about, And we do. I love the fact that the sense of complexity and uncertainty in today's times seems to be pointing into evolution, right? As always. And so if we're to evolve, how can we navigate uncertain territory when things are changing so fast? We've got so much information coming to us that may or may not even be remotely to the reality that's really unfolding, whatever that is too, right? So that's an interesting question too. But how do we know what the truth is? How do we not get caught up in it? All those things. So we've got a lot of questions for you. So we're gonna go ahead and dive in. I like to ask like 10 questions at once, Alan. Just got to know that. so let's start with the basics. Let's start with getting to know you a little bit better, and tell us about your journey and how you got into all this quantum thinking stuff.
Well, I'm married to Diane Collins. So let me just first off say that, because Diane is the creator of QuantumThink. the author of her book Do You Quantum Think, which I know you're reading and enjoying. And so I got into it because I've always been in the coaching world, although it wasn't necessarily, when I first got into it, it actually wasn't a profession. The only coaches that were around when I first started working in my own businesses and coaching the people that worked for me, coaching was only recognized really in the arts or in sports. It wasn't actually a profession. And, I think it became a profession back in the late 80s, is when actual business coaching and personal coaching, life coaching, and all of those terms, and people started to gravitate towards it. That's when it came into existence. So I've always been doing it. I did it, I've been in business my whole life. And, part of being in business was developing the people around me. And I did it in a coaching fashion then, although I didn't have the distinction for it at the time. So that's always been there for me. And then when Diane and I met and became an entity in ourselves, Diane recognized that I could be doing more than what I was doing. And she, being the creator that she is, she started inventing programs for me. And those programs were in the realm of paradigm shifts. It still wasn't quantum thinking. It was in the realm of paradigm shifts, where we would shift a paradigm, which which is commonly known as a transformation in today's world. And then, but she had always been working. She always studied science and loved science of all kinds. And she invented QuantumThink. And it was basically because one day when I was really working, going out and coaching clients and doing programs in the corporate world, one day I came home and I said, Diane, I can't keep doing this. I don't want to be traveling around the country doing coaching programs for 3 days, coming home, traveling, dealing with the planes and the airports and all that kind of stuff. If this is how I have to make a living, I don't want to do it. And she said, okay, no problem. She said, Alan. And she took the manual of a very, very successful program that we had at that time, and she just threw it in the garbage, literally threw that manual in the garbage. She said, we won't do this anymore. And she invented QuantumThink. And that's when it started, although she'd had it in her mind, and she started to put it together, and she put together a program of 21 days where we would introduce the distinctions of QuantumThink, of which there are 21. And we delivered 16 of them in this 21-day program that we would deliver to corporations, to large groups of people. And that's kind of like how I, got to where I am. That was the sort of shift. That's what had Diane develop QuantumThink. Even though she'd always been doing transformational work, she was able to distinguish what she was doing herself. Mm-hmm. And she called it QuantumThink.
Oh, nice. It's like, oh, this is what it is,
Yes, exactly. This is what we've been doing, but we didn't have a way to, to speak it, to distinguish it. So that's how it happened.
Oh, nice. Great. So what the heck is QuantumThink? That's a big question. Give us a clue.
Well, QuantumThink, let's say this. One of the things, I think one of the great discoveries that Diane had, so I have to give her credit for really this. One of my talents, first off, is that I'm a recreator. So what I've been able to do all my life is recreate other people's intentions and what their visions were in a way, and then feed it back to them so that they got what they wanted from it. And I did this, when I was in business, when I grew up, I used to be in the hairdressing world. And I was a hairdresser, and that was one of my talents, is I was able to recreate what people wanted, whether they told me, whether they showed me a photograph or a picture of a celebrity or a person whose hair they liked, or whether they even sat silently. Or whether they wanted a hairstyle for a job interview or a date they were going on, or wanted to meet somebody, whatever it was that they wanted, I was able to recreate it. So so I was able to recreate QuantumThink for, Diane invented it. And what it was, her sort of insight here, her wisdom was that she, through her own discoveries, she realized that like everything in the universe, thinking was a system. Like everything is a system. There isn't anything that's not functioning in a system. And we know that today. It may be different terms, because we know that everything is connected. There is nothing random. Nothing is a standalone activity or a result, an action or occurrence or anything. Everything is connected. And we speak about it. I know it's a lot of conversations about people being, we're connected with each other. Everything's interconnected, interrelated. So what she did was she realized that if everything's connected, then everything does function in systems. We know that nature's systems, planetary systems. If you walked into a store and you walked into a clothing store, for example, or a food store, you went into Whole Foods and there wasn't a system, you would not find what you're looking for. You just wouldn't. There's no way you get, unless you lucked out, but you would never actually find it. But because there is a system, you know exactly where to go. And you go and you find yourself right where you need to be, and you look around. If you can't find it, you ask a question of somebody, but the whole thing is systematic. So when she realized that everything is a system, so therefore if everything is a system, thinking is also a system. So she looked to see, well, what is the system that thinking is? And we all know that thought creates reality, but what gives rise to thinking? What is this system? And what she discovered was that science, which the job of science is to study the nature of reality and then prove it. And then it begins in the laboratories, then it gets into the language, and then it gets into society, and then it gets into the thinking. And then we stop looking at it. We just take it for granted once it gets into the thinking and once it gets into the system, into the mind. And so what she saw was that science 400 years ago, Sir Isaac Newton and his buddies created what was the industrial age through a system of thinking at that time. And that system of thinking was a system of thinking that saw the world as physical, that everything was static, and it wasn't real if you couldn't touch it. It was a total physical world. And that gave rise to the industrial age, machines. But that thinking system that gave rise to the industrial age, which we lovingly call the old worldview, the laws and principles of that worldview, which sees the world as objective, like the world is outside of us. We've heard the term that, I'll believe it when I see it. That's a term that comes from that worldview. I'll see it when I believe it. So we would look outside of ourselves at the circumstances, and we would try to manage the circumstances, see how they work. And if we knew how they work, we would be able to predict what they're going to do, and then we would be able to control them. So that thinking system, is really outdated now. And although there may be parts of it that are still real, but that thinking system doesn't work anymore. That thinking system gave rise to the military, where there's a hierarchical, somebody up the top who knew what was going on would pass a command down, and then down and down and down, and people followed the rules and they did what they were told, and off they went, right? So that was that thinking system. But about 100 years ago or so, with Albert Einstein, with the coming of Albert Einstein and his peers, they started to look at a different worldview. They started to look at quantum physics. And the quantum worldview is very, very different than the sort of circumstantial worldview of Newtonian science. So you had Newtonian science with its rules and regulations, and how that governed society and reality, and it governed how we think about ourselves. Because for example, one of the premises of the classical mechanical worldview, the Newtonian worldview, was things were fixed. It was a fixed, solid system, right? So if things were fixed, well, how did that translate into our thinking? So if something was fixed, we would start relating to everything as if that's the way it is. That's how it would play out in the human realm. So people would say, oh, that's the way he is. That's the way she is. That's the way life is. That's the way my boss is. And we would relate to things as if that's the way they are. Now, in the quantum world, it doesn't work that way. In the quantum world, there are no fixed realities. Everything, it's energy. The nature of energy is that it's always moving. So if you knew that everything is movable and everything is malleable, you would be able to see, well, wait a minute, just because I'm looking at my boss the way that I think he is, that's just my perspective on it right now. That's not necessarily the way he is. That's one perspective, but it's not necessarily true. Just because I'm having that thought doesn't make it the truth. So in the quantum world, there are no absolutes. In the Newtonian world, it's all about absolutes. This is the way it is, right? So now, so you can see that what QuantumThink is, Diane invented this whole entire system of thinking made up of 21 distinctions in thinking. Things like the world is holistic and holographic. The world is, it's an observer. The main part of the quantum world is the observer effect. What you bring to the observation is shaping your experience of what you see, including the experience you think other people are having of you or of the world or of the situation you're in. That's your thought. You're thinking about what you think they think. And goes on even further to say, like, what you think somebody else is thinking about somebody else. So you could see that's all part of your thought, and it's shaping your reality. It shapes how you interact with people when you see it that way. It shapes how you hear them when you view them that way, and it shapes their reaction to you when you're doing this. So basically, QuantumThink is a system of thinking. It's a multi-dimensional system of thinking that is appropriate in today's world, in a quantum world where energy rules, where intent rules. In the old world, circumstance rules. And in the new world, intent rules. So you can begin to see, if you're thinking in a limited system, because the old worldview, the science of Newtonian science, has proved by most scientists today as being incorrect. And it's not valid, really. Some parts may be, but we're not throwing it out, because one aspect of the quantum worldview is it sees things in whole systems. So if you're viewing things in whole systems, you would, by its nature, would have to include the old system. But the old system does not include the new. Right? So QuantumThink, if you're thinking in a limited system and you can't distinguish that you're doing so, you're going to be limited by that system. Regardless of how clever you are, how intelligent you are, how brilliant you are, everything will be shaped by that. And we see it in all of our institutions right now, how they're breaking down, right? We see it. So QuantumThink, you can't get to QuantumThink from the old. It literally is a quantum leap, where you leap systems or you leap paradigms. You can't get to a new paradigm from an old paradigm. You actually have to leave the old behind and take a leap to the new. QuantumThink does include the old. So we're not saying you have to give it up, but you have to be able to see when your thinking is limited by that system.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so yeah, as I've been reading the book, so it's getting into it, and they're talking about the observer orientation, and all that. And of course, anybody that's heard anything about quantum physics knows that when they look at electrons, right, like at how they're acting, well, if you observe it in one way, they're acting in one way. If you start looking at another way, it shows up another way. In other words, what I've always said about scientific research, a lot of people might say that I'm an anti-science guy, because not quantum physics people, but other people, right? I say, when they say, well, there's X amount of studies that prove all these things, I say, yeah, you'll find what you look for. Like, I mean, that's where I start. I mean, I'm not saying there's nothing to it. I'm just
That's
saying
right.
you'll see what you look for. I can create so-called valid scientific studies that will prove just the opposite. And then you'll argue, and then you come up with your study, and we just go back and forth. We're just seeing what we're saying exists there. So
Right.
so there's just no doubt about that. I mean, to me, and so we have to wake up to this reality. And I think that, yeah, one of the things that the fixed system is, yeah, things are the way they are. We do that all the time, right? Well, my mom just is that way. That's just the way
Right.
she is, and I
That's exactly
do
right.
it, and I do it myself still, right? We still call ourselves up in that living thinking. But like when I'm in that enlightened space, and I start to realize that, I realize, no, my mom shows up the way that I'm perceiving my mom in a sense, right? So she's going to show up the way I'm perceiving her, and then she starts showing up differently, so that's what I've experimented with, and I've told people for years. I'm like, you can't go around keep saying that things are this way and that way, because then you, as we already know on that one, that's clear. Like you're like, in a sense, creating it, right? Because
That's right.
it's the observer effect. That's what I love, is the distinction in the book that is really making it really clear. It's an observer effect. So you're observing it in this way, and then it shows up in that way. But if you're willing to observe it in another way, then you're going to start seeing it that way, and then it literally becomes that. And I think that's a nice distinction, rather than people thinking, I need to use willpower to be positive and think differently and make this thing happen, because that's where the efforting and it's hard. It's very hard to do it in that system, is it not, Alan?
Yeah, that's the old way. You see, in the old way, it's about change. You're trying to change something.
Yeah.
But there's that thing. What you put your attention on expands. So in QuantumThink, there's a distinction called transformation is distinct from change, because when you try to change something, you have to keep the thing that you want to change present to determine how well you're doing with the change, right?
Great.
So that's why it's hard. But a transformation is different. A transformation transcends the current form. It takes a leap. It doesn't try to change it. It's like, so you're looking at it in an entirely different perspective. You know what I'm saying? And this is where
totally. I just think it's
so it's a different
thing.
It's so brilliant. A transformation is instant. Change can take forever.
Right. And in healing, the way of looking at that would be, you keep observing, the person as whole until that's all you can see. That's like one way, but often that has a connotation that you're seeing unholiness at the same time.
That's why you have to see the idea of QuantumThink, which I've learned from myself, is, and look, it's not an either or world, it's a both and, and so we have to always pay attention to that.
Yeah.
But when something is the way it is and you're looking at it that way, then it becomes either or.
Mm-hmm.
They're either this way or they're that way.
Right.
You're not looking at them as infinite human beings where they could be anything, and you're the one influencing the anything. Right. It's what I've found about QuantumThink is, and I don't know if you're experiencing this for yourself, but I've read it. I've read Diane's book, Do You QuantumThink, at least 15 times, because I was her main editor. And how we did it when I was editing it with her, we would sit down and I would read it to her. And oftentimes we would go off, we would take a couple of weeks, we'd go into the Caribbean, sit on the beach, and all we did was read her writings to create this book. And what we did was in the reading of it, for me, I would read it to Diane. And if I got swayed, or Diane, we sort of lost it in the moment, you know, you lost attention. We knew we had to handle that. She knew she had to rewrite that piece, because the idea of it is it raises your level of consciousness. You become, I don't know if you're experiencing this, because I did when I was reading it, that suddenly I would automatically become super consciously aware of myself and what was around me. And so that is really the thing here, is about moving people from a sleep state of what the mechanical worldview done, because that's the world of the machine. The machine is automatic. So when you're on automatic, you're basically asleep.
Right.
I mean, you're not thinking. You're really not thinking. There's no thinking going on. You're just going with the flow. That's what a machine does. And the only time you would attend to a machine or bring some attention to it is when it broke down.
Right.
You know, but in the ordinary course of it running, you wouldn't pay attention to it. So that's as human beings, we've gotten to that way as well. We're on automatic most of the time, including myself. I put myself in there as well, as you know, because you know, fortunately for me, when I'm asleep, I've got somebody to remind me I'm asleep, and instantly I wake up. So, so this is, and it's, you know, it's important to know that we can't resolve the world's problems if we're asleep. It's not going to happen. There's no amount of money. There's no amount of legislation. There's no amount of rules and laws. It isn't going to happen that way. Or money, none of that is going to change the world that we live in today. And although technology has advanced exponentially and continues to do so, human beings are still doing the things that they've been doing to each other back to the beginning.
Right.
There's nothing changed. You know, I mean, you look 10 years back, 50 years back, 100 years back, 500 years back, we're still, we still treat each other with the same level of disrespect, and we're not connected, and attack each other and try to kill each other and hurt each other, and no compassion. I mean, that's still going on today, even though technology itself has advanced at an extraordinary pace and is not slowing down. I mean, amazing things going on in the technological world, but human beings are still out there killing each other en masse. And so, so we need that shift in consciousness, and QuantumThink brings that about for people. It enables people as they learn quantum thinking, and then the system starts to kick in. You know, it's like when you're learning a foreign language. You just learn it, and in the beginning, you're translating it into the familiar language, and then at some point in a moment in time that's not predictable, you start thinking in that language, but you don't actually know when that's going to happen. And when you start thinking in it, you can converse in it, you can write in it, and then you're in the system of that language. And that's QuantumThink. QuantumThink, when you start to immerse yourself in it, you start thinking in that system. And as far as we know today from quantum sciences, there is no limitation there. It's an infinite possibility universe. So it's not a bad place to be.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I think one of the things that's maybe made some of the energy a little bit more toxic is the social media effect, right? I mean, that the people walking around with phones all day and all that stuff. So that's dramatically changed people in a huge way. And I think in some ways, of course, you could, from the Newtonian perspective, positive and negative, right? But it wires you, you know, it wires you to that basal brain, right? That the survival brain, the base brain, like, oh my God, what's going on? You know, threats. So we got to attack, and they attack through social media. It's like a war, you know, and you know that many are waging, and then some people find themselves slipping into, just like we would in everyday life. But when we have a device, a technology piece, it's a cold piece. So it's a lot easier to do it there, right? It's a lot easier to say, screw you, I hate your guts, you're the worst thing ever. It's a lot easier to do that than in someone's face.
But it's an evolution, you see. It's like, this is why we say in QuantumThink, the first distinction in QuantumThink is holistic and holographic. And holistic, we know, we know that everything is connected, right? That's the holistic aspect of things, that everything is connected to everything else, right?
Yeah.
So that's the holistic side of it. But the holographic piece, we're not so familiar with. Because the thing about a hologram is that if you cut the image, the negative of the image into pieces, the entire image is in all the pieces. Now, it's not so vivid, it gets fades some, but nevertheless, that whole entire image is in every single piece. That's what a hologram is. So what that translates to from a human perspective is that everything is always there. It evolves. Like for example, I was talking to somebody yesterday about the stock market and what's going on in the stock market right now, with this Reddit and the Robinhood thing, and this one stock that is going crazy out there. That the social media has been, the people on Reddit have like really affected this. And I was talking to one of my clients yesterday, and he said, "Well, this will be interesting for you, Alan." He said, how the stock market began. He says it began in coffee shops in England, where people would get together. That's where people congregated. That was the social setting back 100 odd years ago. So it really hasn't changed now. Social media is an evolution of a coffee shop.
Yeah.
When you start to think about it. And I see that, you see, I can see that from a QuantumThink perspective, because I look from things from whole systems. So when you're looking at a whole system, a holographic system, everything that ever existed and will ever exist actually exists today.
Right.
And it's a matter of being able to distinguish it like that. And that way you can see that if things haven't changed, they've evolved. So if they're evolving, there's no difference between somebody with their face in in an iPhone, or, back maybe 30 years ago, they just had the telephone, or before that, they had coffee shops. And before that in France, all of the philosophers of those times would gather around in coffee shops. And this is, it's not different, but the technology makes it look different.
I think it changes the experience. I do believe that. I think it does change it qualitatively for sure. And again, you could look at it again if the good bad aspect, and good and not such great ways,
Sure.
perhaps. So what we need to do is step back, and you're not going to do great quantum thinking, so to speak, if you're getting caught up into the energies that happen, in those kind of conversations I was mentioning before, right? So we have to realize when we're getting caught up in that stuff, and just drop and roll kind of thing. Is how I look at this.
Yeah.
Let it go. You've got to be able to get back into. So I want to get to this question soon, but intent versus intention. So I think that's a brilliant distinction. But we have to be able to do that if we're going to get out of when we say, well, I don't want them thinking like that, or I don't want the world to be like that. Well, then you need to use the principles in QuantumThink. That's what you need to do.
Right.
That's the most effective, fastest path to seeing anything change.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Because you are influencing the change that you want to see. I mean, it is quite amazing to me that, you can influence somebody else's experience, because it's it's because there's no separation really, there's only distinctions. So, if you think somebody is judging you, for example, and so you're in the experience of them judging you, well, that's your experience of them judging you. And that influences them because they are feeling being judged. So if you're thinking that they're judging you, they're feeling being judged. So you're getting it right back. It's like a reflection back. If you're consciously aware of yourself in that moment, and you say, wait a minute, I'm relating to this person like they're judging me. Well, wait a minute, they're just being themselves. Let me create a new intent here. Let me create an intent for the experience I want them to have of me. And you create that intent for the experience you want them to have of you and of themselves and of the relationship. You create that intent, and then you're there. You're not, there's no judging going on now, because you've now created a new experience for them and you and the both of you together. And it immediately, believe me, Dan, it's instant. It shifts.
Yeah.
It shifts. There's nothing else. And that's why it's so beautiful, because it's actually easy. Now, it's not always simple, because you have to get out, you have to be consciously aware of what you're doing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You've got to be, because just the act of being consciously aware of your limited thought in that moment shifts you. If you're a quantum thinker and you consciously become aware of your limited thought in that moment, instantaneously, in a nanosecond, you're not there anymore. You're now quantum thinking.
Right.
It only takes the conscious shift, the conscious awareness of yourself to shift you. But if you don't have quantum think, you don't have a new system, then what you're doing is you refer to positive thinking. You're going to try to change things. You try to explain it away. You're working on yourself. You're doing all kinds of processes. It takes forever. The moment's gone, and and it's really inefficient.
Yeah, it really is. Let's talk about I'm going to combine the question with an experiences that I have, because I teach people how to do stuff too, or in my own way. So so one of the things I've experienced, and I like the language used in the book, and I haven't read enough of it to flesh it all the way out, and I want to ask about it, is you make a distinction again between, everybody says, set your intention, just set the intention, stay focused on it, and it will happen. And of course, take massive action towards it. You got to focus on it and it'll happen. That's the idea. My perception of intent, and I'm concerned, I'm wondering, and I'm concerned, it's not the word I'm looking for. I'm wondering, like, how you see this. Intent to me is different, because the way I look at it, the way you describe it, the way I feel about it more than anything, when I hear it in the book, it feels like I'm just like it's an awareness. I'm not like stating this is the reality and that's my intention. That's it. It's happening. Instead it's just awareness, right? Mm-hmm. And with this awareness, Alan, like I've experienced just incredible things, big and small, to people's minds, right? Like I have this thing, I have an intent that I developed at some point, and I get my jollies from it, I guess, when I go into restaurants and they constantly bring me free food. They just constantly bring me whatever I want. Like I'll order, I'll be thinking in my mind, I'd love to have an extra onion ring with that. I don't think I want to order that though. And then they bring me the usual thing. They bring a side of onion rings, because I had an awareness I wanted that. And then they just literally show up that way. They just literally, you wanted this, right? So it happens all the time.
So Dan, let me ask you, what intent do you think you function from at a deeper level, that has people want to give you things for free?
That's a great question. That makes me stretch. Because what I was trying to point to, I don't know if this will answer the question, but what my experience has been that it's just an awareness that I want it, and it's not that I'm trying to make anything happen. It's just I'm having this intention of wanting it, and somehow I created this trick for myself, or whatever you want to call it, like where it just happens, and it's just kind of on autopilot, and I'm not trying to will it or make it happen, but it's where it happens. So,
well, let me ask you this, and this is to expand out on this intent thing. Do you notice that people do that in other places as well? Like that people give you things?
Yeah. I mean, not as much as there, but yeah, in other places, absolutely.
Yeah, so so there's some intent that you're functioning from that's having that happen. It may be that I mean, I don't know what it is, of course, because we're not going to delve into it right now. We could, but it doesn't make sense to do it now. But it could be that that you love people, and that you really care for people, and that you'd like to give to people yourself, right? Mm-hmm. That maybe you have an intent that that the exchange of contribution, like that you like, that you love to give to people, that you love sharing things with people, and people love sharing things with each other. You know, they love sharing, you love sharing with them, they love sharing with you. Maybe that's it's in the realm of where your intent lives, and it's not that you've even distinguished it. And this is interesting because we all have these. You know, there's what I call a default intent and a conscious intent. Intent is always playing out. It is never not playing out. And so if you have a default intent, then the chances are you're not going to be aware of it, but it's playing out, and you're going to get the results consistent to that default intent. But if you can see that you have a default intent, and if you understand in quantum thinking, knowing how it works, you can see, wait a minute, that's a default intent. What is my conscious intent right here? And then you create the intent that you want. An intent, by the way, is an intent sets up a resonant field. That's actually what it does. That's the physical aspect of intent, is it sets up a resonant field, because intent creates. It's a thought. Intent is a thought. And it could be a thought of a creative thought. It could be a creative question, which are questions of thought. You're creating a resonant field. And so intent creates, but resonance manifests. So when you create an intent, you're setting up a creative field. And this is when, to your earlier question about intent and intention, intent, when you create a resonant field, what happens is it starts to bring in, you know, we hear the word, the law of attraction, although that's not a law actually, but still, it brings in, it magnetizes, if you like. Yeah. It magnetizes anything out there in the world of infinite possibility that resonates with that intent. So it could be many things. It's not one thing, it's many things. And then there's another distinction in QuantumThink called allowing. Allowing is the passive aspect of intent, where intent is the active principle, allowing is the passive principle. And how that works is when you start to see these things coming into your resonant field, as well as things, by the way, leaving the resonant field. When you see the comings and goings into the resonant field, you start to look at them in the context of your intent versus your feelings, your emotions, your plans, all well laid out. Like, you know, sometimes you could lose a business client. But if you look at it as instead of looking at it like I did something wrong, what did I do wrong that I lost that client? You begin to look and see, well, did my intent change? What is the intent that I have in my business? Or what was the intent I had with this client? Did I fall into a default intent versus a conscious intent? You begin to look from the realm of intent to see what's coming in and what's going on, what's going out. And allowing, when you're in the distinction of allowing, you can begin to make that connection. So you don't take things personally. You don't beat yourself up if something goes wrong. You can see it in the context of intent, which is very, very powerful. You see what I'm saying? Because you're in the freedom, whether you're winning or losing, you can see it and you can enjoy it no matter what it is.
Exactly. Well, my early teachers put it really well. She talked about manifestation masters, is how she liked to put it. But she says a manifestation master revels in all of his or her creations.
That's right. Exactly. Now, intention, what's distinct between intent, which is many things, because it's setting up a resonant field, an energy field, where anything that is similar to it is going to come in, and anything that is very dissimilar from it is going to go out, right? Mm-hmm. So that's intent. So you're accessing the world of infinite possibility with intent. Now, intention, the distinction, intention, they're both valid, by the way, but see, this is the beauty of distinctions. Let me say this first. When we say distinctions, we're not necessarily distinguishing only this from that. Mm-hmm. When we're looking at the art of distinguishing, which is what we call the sort of a new worldview of learning, The art of distinguishing is you're distinguishing things for people that's already there, but they have not seen it yet. Or they may have seen it one way. And by distinguishing it, they begin to see it in many ways.
Mhm.
So you're distinguishing something because in an infinite possibility, as I said, holographically, in an infinite possibility universe, everything that has ever existed or everything that will come in at some point, or even now, it's all there now. So what we're doing is distinguishing what may not be visible because it was long gone or it hasn't come, right?
Right.
And so that's that. So when we're speaking about intention is focused on one thing. You and I had an intention today to meet at 2 o'clock Central Time.
Yeah.
That's an intention. It's
Mhm.
one goal. And one thing that you're after, and we have an intention for that. Where intent is many,
Mhm.
intention is one.
Mhm. Mhm.
Does that sort of help bring that
Oh,
distinction
totally.
clearer for you?
Totally. Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's more, yeah, I mean, it does because with an intent, it could be of an intent of give us an example, help for me and the
Okay.
audience to distinguish, like give us an example of, oh, here's my intent versus, oh, here's an intention, like a
Okay.
specific example.
Intent is an experience. Okay, so therefore experience, because what you want to do, see, we all want to have a great experience. Doesn't matter who we are. We want to experience well-being. We want to experience happiness. We want to experience joy. We want to experience fun. We want to be in the experience of our passion. It's all about the experience because experience is an in-the-moment phenomenon.
Right.
There's no experience tomorrow.
Mhm.
Yesterday's experience is a memory. So it's not an experience anymore. It's a memory of an experience.
Mhm.
Experience, the phenomenal thing about an experience is it's in the moment. So when you create an intent, it has to be in the moment, for the moment. So you create an experience like in the business world, for example, I might say to my clients, like they're having some difficulty with somebody, that they're working with. It might be like the intent might be that the other person, the person you're talking to, your intent would be that they experience being valued. They experience that their work is a contribution to everybody they work with, that their products are valued in the marketplace. That would be an example of an intent where you're creating to start, at least to start with. We could go further, but a simple way of doing it, which works very beautifully in families. You've got your wife's doing this, your husband's doing that, the kids don't listen. I mean, I've done this with, like, for example, parents with their children, oftentimes with little children, like 5, but all ages of children, really, is that, when you ask a child something, they'll usually give you a one-word answer. And and I explore, why is that? Why do children just give you the one-word answer? Yeah, it was great, fine, beautiful, thanks, bye, good, it went well, and why? Because they don't actually experience being heard. That's why. They can't articulate it, but that's their experience. So I often talk, there's a distinction in QuantumThink called success to mastery. Success is based in the past. And what we do is we try to duplicate or replicate our successes or improve upon them, right? But mastery is an in the moment phenomenon.
Right.
So now each of the distinctions of QuantumThink have a recreation associated with them. When you read the book, you'll get to those recreations. Those recreations are for awareness. They're not things you have to go out and do, like climb a tree or jump off a mountain. These are exercises for the mind and awareness. So we coach you on exactly how to get into that state of awareness. And one of the things that we say in this distinction of success to mastery is listening from not knowing. Now, how the question then becomes, well, that's all where there were people saying, well, that's all well and good, Alan. How, you know, I can listen from not knowing. If I go, you know, if I go off to a country I've never been to before and I don't understand the language, I'm going to be naturally listening from not knowing because I don't know anything about that country or their language or their traditions or anything, right? So that's circumstantial though. See, that's a circumstantial listening from not knowing. The circumstances are dictating that you don't know, right? So now the question is how does one listen from not knowing with somebody who you're familiar with, like your children, like your husband, like your wife, like your parents, your brothers and sisters, who you think you know, that's the way they are. Remember, that's where we started the conversation today, right? That's the way they are. Oh, I know my sister, she's going to do this. When I do that, she's going to say that. If I say this, she'll say that. That's listening from knowing. The only way you can listen from not knowing to somebody you know, you're familiar with, is you can only do it consciously. So you you consciously say, I am going to listen from not knowing.
Right.
And so that becomes the intent. So
Right.
you listen from not knowing. You have an intent to listen from not knowing. So
From
when you
in the
sit,
moment, and the distinction too is that it's in the moment versus when you're with an intention. You might say ahead of time. You might say, well, when I meet with Alan today, my intention is that we have an amazing interview, right? So that's sort of the distinction, or no?
that an amazing interview is in the realm of intention.
Right, right. That's what I mean. That would be an
Yeah,
intention.
intention. That would be more like an intention.
Yeah,
An intent would be for the experience. It would be, I'm gonna have an interview with Alan today, and my intent is to listen from not knowing, and for Alan to experience being heard.
Mm-hmm.
That is an intent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're creating the experience for the other.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, when you're listening to them, ultimately, no matter what you do and all the fancy words and listening, you know, people have all these fancy things about listening proactively and active listening, and, you know, all of these things. But the bottom line on it is, what do we want to do when we're listening to somebody? And if we really want to listen to somebody, we want them to experience being heard. That's the experience we want. That's in the moment.
Yeah.
Because when somebody experiences being heard, because we're in the moment, something magical happens. You experience being heard.
Right.
So you don't have to focus on yourself, like, you know, which a lot of people in the old world view, in the mechanical separation consciousness, people work on themselves. Oh, I'm going to go into this conversation and I want to experience being heard. Well, if everything is interconnected and interrelated, what if you didn't focus on you? Because you're influencing your experience. What if you focused on the other, on that person, and you create an intent for them to experience being heard? How's that going to influence and alter that relationship? And that is incredibly powerful. And it is really easy. It takes conscious awareness. And knowing the quantum think distinctions.
Yes. All right. So let's get there. As we start to wrap up the show, this is amazing. This is definitely something that we want to share with as many people as possible. I mean, stuff today.
Right.
So I know that you had a free gift and some gift and a free gift as well for the audience. So this be a good time for you to go ahead and share that with everyone.
Free gift. Yes. What was my free gift?
Yes, you.
We have.
Yes.
Let me see. You know what? I forgot
20
what my free gift. You know what? I forgot what my free gift was. It
Okay,
sounds crazy, but you know what I'm going to do? I can email you a free gift. There will be a free gift for all your listeners, but the free gift can be. There's two things. One is there's one for clearly. We have a website called this one, QuantumThink.net. If your listeners go to QuantumThink.net, Now, QuantumThink.net is a website that is dedicated to what is called the QuantumThink Audio Coach Program. The QuantumThink Audio Coach Program are 10 distinctions, the 10 basic distinctions of QuantumThink that are that they can listen to. That you would have to buy them. They're well, here's what we could do here. They can buy them. They're usually $199. Okay. What I will do for your listeners, Dan, because I've really enjoyed my time with you today, and you've been genuinely interested in QuantumThink. For your listeners, I'm going to give it to them for $150. Okay. Now, what they need to do is there is a free introduction there anyways. They can go on there and they can sign up and get the free introduction, which is 28 minutes, which gives an overview of QuantumThink. And it's really, really good, actually. It really does distinguish old worldview and new worldview. So it's really good. If you're on there now, if you're looking at quantumthink.net, you'll see the free intro, okay? 28 minutes, they get that. And if they want, after doing that, if they would like to buy it, what they need to do is they can send me an email at Alan at quantumthink.com, and I will give them a code that will be associated with you for your listeners only. Okay. And they can go in and purchase. They can purchase the Audio Coach series for $150, and they put the code in and they will get it for $150. I will give them that code.
Nice.
Okay, so the free intro's on there already. They get the free intro anyway, because that's there. And they can get that $45 discount on the program by writing to me at alan@quantumthink.com. And then I'll give them a code, and they'll be able to go in and they'll get the 10 basic distinctions, the ones that some of which we've been speaking about, like we spoke about holistic and holographic, the observer created reality, the observer effect. We spoke about allowing, there's infinite possibility, success to mastery. There's the transformation is distinct from change. The perspective of all perspectives, which we didn't talk about. The 4 aspects of knowing, which is incredibly powerful because it shows you how you know things. It distinguishes how we know things and where the power of the knowing lives. You know, like if you know something in one way, it's going to be you're going to get the result, no question. You know it in another way, you won't. And so the 4 aspects of knowing, and then being centered. I think that's all of them, actually, if that was 10 of them. And so they get access to that. Those distinctions are like 28 minutes. You can listen to them. They're very, very well done. They're professionally produced. And then the recreations are there, and on the pages there, they've got all kinds of support information on there that they can use. Intent and intention, they can read about that, so they can get clear on that distinction between the 2 of those. And then there'll be quantum thinking by the time they get through with all that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Definitely going to put them into the quantum. I feel like the book that I'm reading now, the book that the book part that I already, and I've just been scratching the surface of the book. I haven't gone, there's a few pages left in there. I feel like it's already awakening something in me. It's because you guys designed it that way. You both designed it that way, so that it's not just a mental understanding, Newtonian, but it actually awakens something inside you. So it's a really,
absolutely
really special experience.
It does. It was. I would say to you, Dan, that the book and all of QuantumThink, whether you listen to the audio coach online, or whether you buy the book, or whatever else, there's other things, there's videos and things. Whatever you do in the QuantumThink done, it is done holographically, which basically it means that it's because, remember I said the whole is present in everything. You're actually getting the entire system in each distinction.
Right.
that is the holographic design of QuantumThink.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's one that you want to get. So go to quantumthink.net and definitely get the free introduction.
And the books, you can buy the book. Yeah, you can get the book on Amazon. Do You Quantum Think? New Thinking That Will Rock Your World. You can pick it up on, anybody can pick it up on Amazon.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and then definitely take advantage of the Quantum Think audio coach and that opportunity. Just email Alan at quantumthink.com to get your discount from 195 down to 150. And the magic you create with what you're getting here, oh my God, everything becomes so simplified, so much easier. The miracles and magic that come into your life are incredible, even with the levels of it that I'm into, the way I've made my distinctions, and this is just going to sharpen you that much more. So, Alan, we've reached the time of the show where I just take maybe a moment here today to tune in your energy and see if from the quantum, if there's some messages I'm getting to share about what I see happening with your energy or just about you. Would you like to receive that for a minute or so today?
Yeah, me? Yes.
Yes, you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, let me just tune in and see what's coming through. I've got the obvious, you're a master coach, so that's already known, but it's something that wants to be emphasized. Okay, let's see what else. They're showing me chameleon energy. So you can adapt to, maybe because of quantum thing, you can adapt to many situations. So it's like whatever, you're very brilliant that way. Like wherever you go, you can thrive even before you got formally in a quantum thing, able to adjust to whatever the situation is to be of the highest, service and integrity for that situation or that, in that system, if you will, too. Let's see, that's cool. Let's see what else is going on. Just the depth of your intuition, I think is really profound. So you have that deep mystical connection with other people and with, I want to say, I don't know how you look at it, Alan, but other beings, different realms, different dimensional beings and whatnot. That go beyond the ordinary ones we would describe, like you want to go to higher dimensions. A lot of people talk about archangels, etc. But there's a higher order of energy that you're connected with, and other dimensions. So it's really interesting. Let's see. Yeah, so in that way you're able to play as a sorcerer, in a delightful way for yourself and others. You're able to help people in that way. Let's see. Yeah, there's still something in a throat chakra, which is a common one for most people, almost everybody. Like there's definitely that's funny you said about being heard. That is a big part of your, I felt it when you said it. I feel like others being heard and you being heard is so important to you. And then I feel like there's continues to be more self-expression that wants to happen through you. Fuller, maybe a fuller share, maybe more vulnerable, maybe something even deeper. I feel something bubbling up that we're not going to get into today, but I just feel that. So I just point to it today. Yeah, that's it. So with the time we have, I just, we do them kind of brief and quick. Any quick, reflections or thoughts on what came through?
Well, yeah, actually, it's great that you said those things, because what you just did was you distinguished, like making the connection between what I do and what you do. You just distinguished aspects of myself that are real for me, which I know. Like I'm extremely intuitive, which plays out very well with me, nicely with my clients.
Right.
I remember I said I'm a recreator, so I can go into any situation and recreate that situation. So you distinguish that part of it, even though we were using different language, you got that one. I felt that, that that there is something ready to come out. There's a new level of self-expression that is ready to come out. I feel it within myself. So I think you nailed it. You got it very, very, and listening is really important to me. I'm very, very good at that. And I think, the people that listen to this recording will really have a profound impact just from the conversation you and I had about listening.
Yeah.
Will be a very big impact for people who are listening to this.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time on helping people listen and using the power of intent to really do that, because that's where our experience occurs. It occurs in the listening.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't occur anywhere else. It occurs in the listening.
Yeah.
So that's where people's experience happens. So you actually was able to distinguish many of the qualities that I have and the interests that I have going forward perfectly, right on. So you got it. You just distinguished distinction.
All right. Cool, Alan. And I'll just share with everybody, again, you can check me out at yoursacredpurpose.com. I do full consultations, doing this sort of listening and seeing you. So you have the opportunity to gain that at yoursacredpurpose.com, an energy scan consultation. You'll see the details of how to do that there. And also there's a free meditation there to meditate and make money. Open up your energy, get that deeper listening happening, get your downloads. And again, they say, almost every show lately, I have people saying, I just listen to that and they see the money keep pouring in. And it does have to do with what Alan's talking about, because you're listening for it. I've always said, because in part because of my teachers, but your life is a listening. So what you're listening to is what you're going to experience. So absolutely. So that's Alan, as we're wrapping up today, do you have any last, we have, both of us are people who have so much we could keep sharing, right? Any last things to share for today? Yeah.
Well, the last thought I had based on what you just said actually was, because, you're tuned into this money thing, you might want to interview Diane.
Yeah.
Because Diane is the creator of QuantumThink. She'll take it to a whole nother level where she'll get on my shoulders and go to another level with it. But she is very, very focused on money. And she's got a whole video program on money. And I think you and her would have a fabulous conversation about money. So I would leave you with that thought. I'll give her your email and tell her to connect with you.
Right.
And then you and her can set up. You will enjoy her a lot, and you've got a lot of common interest here in this range of money, and how to use QuantumThink to bring in the money, to get a perspective on money, along with what you're doing, could be a very, very powerful impact in the world.
Wonderful. Well, Alan, it's just beyond delightful to have you today. I just so enjoyed every moment of it. And I'm so grateful for everyone tuning in today. And as I always say, keep on tuning in here, and we'll keep on rocking it here at Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Till next time, everyone. Goodbye for now.
You're listening to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Stay tuned for our next upcoming new episodes each Wednesday and Saturday. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to help us to serve you best. As a reminder, you can get your free Meditate and Make Money meditation at www.yoursacredpurpose.com to rock your sacred purpose. Goodbye for now, everybody.